On a gloomy Tuesday afternoon, through the blur of busy city traffic, a sleek black limousine glided past faded buildings, raindrops scattering against its tinted windows. In the back seat sat Ethan Carter, 36, a renowned financial investor, staring quietly out at the city. He had just canceled a high-profile meeting in New York to return home 2 days earlier. Not because someone was waiting for him, but because no one was. Ethan lived alone in a vast estate on the outskirts of the city, dinners for one, 8 silent rooms, and dreams that had long been set aside. Success had come early. Happiness never had. He glanced at his watch. 2:30 p.m. His eyes drifted toward the rain-speckled glass. The familiar outlines of manicured gardens began to appear in the distance. "We're here, Mr. Carter," the driver said gently. Ethan nodded, opening the door himself before any help arrived, his leather briefcase in hand, like a habit too old to break. Inside that house, no one was waiting, or so he thought. But within minutes, something small would happen, something seemingly insignificant, but destined to change the lives of 3 people, forever. The sound of leather shoes echoed across the cold marble floor as Ethan stepped into the grand foyer. Everything was as it always was, immaculate, polished, untouched, and lifeless. He placed his keys on the mahogany table, letting out a quiet sigh. Not even his own return could make the house feel less hollow. "Miss Rivera?" he called out, addressing the housekeeper hired just 3 months earlier. No answer. He made his way toward the kitchen, where the scent of freshly baked bread had, on rare days, surprised him with a hint of warmth. But this time, what greeted him was Isabel's unconscious body on the floor. "Miss Rivera," his voice cracked as he ran to her. She was lying on her side, her face pale, a shattered glass beside her. Ethan knelt, reaching for her wrist. The pulse was faint, but there. Without thinking, he lifted her into his arms, surprisingly light, and rushed her to the car. For 15 minutes as he sped to the hospital, Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his mind flooded with questions. Why was he so afraid? Since when did emotion pierce the armor of his calculated life? At the hospital, the doctor delivered the news. Isabel was severely anemic. "Has she been eating properly?" the doctor asked. Ethan was speechless. He didn't know. "We suspect she's been donating blood far too often," the doctor added. "That could explain her condition." Ethan blinked, confused. Who would risk their own health just to give blood? He didn't yet know that within minutes he would hear a truth that would forever change his understanding of sacrifice. Isabel stirred hours later, blinking against the sterile hospital lights. When she saw Ethan sitting quietly beside her, color flushed her cheeks. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry for the trouble." Ethan shook his head. His voice was lower, gentler than usual. "The doctor said you need to rest. Miss Rivera, why are you donating so much blood?" She didn't answer right away. Her gaze shifted to the window, where rain still tapped against the glass. "It's complicated, sir." "I have time," Ethan said, meaning it more than he expected. She turned, her brown eyes searching his face. Then quietly, "Leo? His name is Leo. He's 7. He has leukemia. I'm not his mother. I'm the last friend his mother had. She died giving birth." Ethan gripped the arm of the chair. A familiar sting filled his chest. "That boy, he's why I stayed in this city," Isabel said softly. "I'm all he has left." Something moved in Ethan. "I want to meet him," he said. 3 days later, Ethan stood outside room 318 in the children's hospital. Through the slightly open door, he saw a thin, bald child bent over a coloring book. "Leo, you have a visitor," the nurse said gently. The boy looked up, wide, dark eyes lighting up. "Are you the man with the really big house? Aunt Isabel told me." Ethan smiled as he stepped inside. "That's me. But I think my house still feels empty." "I'm drawing Aunt Isabel with angel wings," Leo said proudly, "because she always saves me when I'm scared." Ethan looked at the drawing. A woman flying through the sky, cradling a small child in her arms. The lines were clumsy, the colors bold, but the emotion was undeniable. He sat beside Leo, feeling an unfamiliar warmth settling in his chest. And there, beside a hospital bed, a man who had long forgotten how to feel began to smile again, because of a boy who smiled through pain. Leo sat cross-legged on his hospital bed, wide, dark eyes focused intently on the page in front of him. His small, trembling fingers added golden rays of light to the angel wings he had drawn for Aunt Isabel, his affectionate name for Isabel. Sitting beside him, Ethan watched in silence. He couldn't recall the last time he truly looked at someone. Not like a file, not like a figure on a spreadsheet, but like this, like a soul fighting bravely, using only a smile for armor. "Would you like to stay somewhere else?" Ethan asked softly, his voice more wind than sound. "Somewhere with sunlight, a big yard, and a room just for you?" Leo glanced up, surprised. "Can I bring Aunt Isabel?" Ethan paused for just one breath, then smiled. There's no Leo without Aunt Isabel. Days later, Isabel stood in the grand living room of the Carter estate, still holding a dish towel like a shield. Her hair was neatly tied back, eyes uncertain, not because she distrusted Ethan, but because kindness from places like this had never belonged to her world. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes darting nervously around the chandeliers, the marble floor, worlds she'd only ever cleaned, never belonged to. Ethan didn't hesitate. "This house used to be an empty shell. You two gave it a heartbeat." She said nothing, but her eyes shimmered, and in that silent answer, Ethan saw it all: gratitude, fear, and a flicker of something that looked a lot like hope. From that day forward, the mansion began to shift. Mornings echoed with Leo's laughter in the garden, evenings smelled of warm soup and candlelight. Vases once forgotten bloomed again, and Ethan, a man who once believed he'd crafted the perfect solitary life, found himself looking forward to small, quiet moments. One evening, Isabel entered his study with a cup of tea in her hands. "There's something I need to tell you," she said quietly. "About Leo?" She nodded. "He needs a bone marrow transplant. Soon." Ethan didn't blink. "I'll get tested." Isabel shook her head instinctively. "You don't have to." "I do," he interrupted. "If I'm a match, I'll do it." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was a pact, spoken in stillness. A week later, the results came in. Ethan was a 98% match. He simply nodded, as if his heart had known all along. That night, passing Leo's room, he paused. Through the partially open door, he saw the boy asleep, clinging to a threadbare teddy bear, lips curled into a peaceful smile. A slice of moonlight cut through the curtains, casting a silver glow over the child's fragile face. Ethan smiled, a real one, untouched by profit or power. He didn't doubt it anymore. A family was forming, not from blood, but from choice. On Monday morning, Ethan woke before the alarm. In the room next door, Isabel was tying her hair back in silence, her lips pressed tight in worry. "Today's the day," she whispered. Ethan nodded, "And we're ready." At the hospital, Ethan was led to the surgical wing. Bright lights, the scent of antiseptic, and the distant hum of machines made him shiver. Not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to do. "The procedure takes about 4 hours," the doctor explained. "You'll be sore afterward, but it's safe." Ethan asked only one thing. "And Leo?" "He's being prepped. If all goes well, you'll see signs of recovery in a few weeks." Before entering the OR, Isabel approached, dressed in surgical gown, eyes rimmed red. "Leo wants to see us before the anesthesia." In the hospital room, Leo lay on his bed, clutching his teddy bear. When he saw Ethan and Isabel, he whispered, "Mr. Ethan, you're gonna give me a part of you, right?" Ethan sat beside him and nodded. "If you want me to." "So, we're really a family now?" Isabel began to cry. Ethan looked into those small, tired eyes and said softly, "You've been my family for a long time." Leo reached out his tiny hand, fragile, trembling, but certain. "Thank you. Dad. Ethan froze. The word struck him like no boardroom decision ever had. Not a title, not a nickname, a truth. The surgery began, and in that cold white room, a man gave away a piece of his own spine, not just to save a child, but to revive the part of himself he thought had long ago died. Leo was healing, little by little. The bruises on his arms had started to fade. His head was still bare from chemotherapy, but his cheeks carried a soft, healthy flush again. In the quiet afternoons at the hospital, he would draw, read aloud, and sometimes giggle when Ethan used funny voices for storybook characters. Life was returning, not just in the boy's fragile body, but in the hearts of two adults who once believed theirs had gone numb forever. Ethan and Isabel had found a rhythm: mornings at the hospital, evenings back home, nights sitting quietly on the terrace, watching the city flicker alive. They didn't call it a family. They didn't need to. It simply was, until one sound shattered it all: a doorbell. Isabel opened the door. Standing there was a tall man with cold eyes, a rough voice, and a thick folder in his hands. "My name is Victor Morales. I'm here for my son, Leo Rivera." Time slowed. Isabel's breath caught. Her heart pounded. "You're Leo's biological father?" Victor nodded, lips curling into a calculated smirk. "I have DNA results, birth certificate. Sophia, his mother, hid him from me for 7 years. But now I know. And I've come to take my son." Just then, Ethan stepped in from the garden, his sleeves rolled up, paint still drying on his hands. He'd been redoing Leo's study desk. One look at Isabel told him something was wrong. He turned to face the man, eyes sharp as steel. "You can't take Leo right now. He's recovering from a bone marrow transplant. His body isn't strong enough." Victor's voice turned colder. "And who exactly are you?" "I'm the man that child calls Dad. The one who gave his marrow to save his life. The one who's held him every night for the past 3 weeks." The air thickened. Victor clenched the folder tightly. "I'll be back with a court order next time." The door closed, but the storm had already entered. That night, Leo curled up in Isabel's lap, eyes wet and voice trembling. "Mama Bia, do I have to leave?" She hugged him tighter, as if he might be torn away. "No, sweetheart. No one is taking you. We're going to fight for you, Leo." In the study, Ethan stood bathed in soft yellow lamplight, phone pressed to his ear. "I need the best custody attorney in the country, preferably undefeated." When he hung up, Isabel stood silently at the door. She didn't speak, just looked at him, long and deep. Ethan walked to her, took her hand and held it tight. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan nodded. "Leo is our family, and no one gets to take him from me." A gust of wind whistled through the window. Outside, the clouds were gathering. Inside, two people who had lost everything were preparing for the battle of their lives, for the child who had rekindled the fire in their hearts. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the turning of each page. Leo sat between Ethan and Isabel, clutching his teddy bear, eyes wide with uncertainty. Before them stood the judge, a silver-haned man with a stern yet not unkind gaze. "We are here to determine what is in the best interest of the child," he stated calmly. The lawyer representing Ethan and Isabel stepped forward, presenting their case. Leo had received consistent medical care, education, emotional support, and stability since living with them. "Mr. Carter literally saved his life through a bone marrow transplant," she emphasized. Across the aisle, Victor claimed he never knew of his son's existence because the mother had fled. "But I have legal rights," he repeated. The judge turned to Leo. "Leo, can you tell me how you feel?" Leo looked up, his voice soft. "I love Mama Bia and Daddy Ethan. They're my family. And what about that man over there?" Leo stared at Victor for a long moment. "I don't know him. When I was scared, he wasn't there. When I was hurting, he didn't hold my hand. But Daddy Ethan did." A wave of emotion swept through the room. The judge nodded slowly. Love is not something you can fake, and sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to love. I hereby grant full custody of Leo Rivera to Ethan Carter and Isabel Rivera. The adoption process will be expedited. Leo let out a joyful shout, throwing his arms around Ethan and Isabel. Victor sat still, silent, without objection. For the first time in his young life, Leo knew something with certainty. He would never be taken from his family again. The court ruling granted full custody to Ethan and Isabel, but the echoes of that moment lingered long after. In the days that followed, peace returned slowly, like soft waves lapping back to shore. Leo slept better each night, though he still held his teddy bear tightly as the sky darkened. Isabel often watched him from the hallway, as if afraid it might all disappear. And Ethan, the man who once feared attachment, never missed a single family dinner now. He was always the last to leave Leo's bedside at night. 2 months later, Leo officially became Leo Carter Rivera. The adoption was finalized in a small ceremony, with Dr. Patel, whom Leo proudly called the Magic Doctor, standing as a witness. A copy of the adoption certificate sat proudly framed on the bookshelf, right next to one of his drawings, the whole family standing beneath the sun, and above them, a woman with white wings. "That's Mama Sophia," Leo said. "I think she sent you both to find me." Ethan never corrected him. He knew what Leo felt, truer than anything he could explain. Life slowly fell into place. There was no wedding, no diamond ring, no vows. But there was something far stronger than any document. The quiet decision of 2 people to stay. For someone who needed them both more than anything, Leo. Mornings came with toasted bread and laughter, evenings with warm lights and stories of superheroes. They were a family, without needing a name for it. Then, one April afternoon, Isabel felt off. She sat down on the kitchen floor, still holding her glass of water. Ethan took her to the clinic. 3 days later, the results came in. She was pregnant, around 7 weeks. They sat in silence for a long time. Isabel was the first to speak. "Will we be okay?" Ethan held her hand tightly. "We've been through worse. This is a gift." That December at Lenox Hill Hospital, Luna Carter Rivera was born, slightly early, a little small, but loud and strong enough to make the nurses laugh. Leo stood outside the nursery window, forehead pressed to the glass, clutching his old teddy bear. "When I was born," he told Ethan, "no one was there for me, but she has me, and you, and Mom." Ethan leaned in, forehead to forehead, "And she always will." On an early spring afternoon, Leo pushed Luna on the swing in the garden. Isabel sat under the tree with a book. Ethan brought tea out and sat beside her, their hands brushing gently. "We're not married," Isabel said, almost casually. "Still not official?" Ethan was quiet. Then he smiled. "Maybe one day, but today we have her," he nodded toward Luna. "The light that came after every storm. That's more binding than any ring." Isabel looked at him and nodded. "We've already chosen each other every day. No rings, no vows, just love. And the quiet, constant choice, repeated through actions, presence, touch, and silence, that this is home." And that house, once echoing only with silence, now held the laughter of children, the warmth of soup, and the unspoken truth that love, when chosen, never needs to be declared.